Welcome to the Reality OS. I'm Peter Duke, and today I'm joined with producer in training, Carie Jones. How you doing, Carie?
I'm good, thanks. How about you?
I'm fine and dandy. So Carie, we've got a second setup going in my house today. Tracy is on vacation on the beaches of the southeast United States, and Lauren is off in Lauren land. I don't know where she is. And so Carrie's going to join us today, and we're going to talk about a bunch of really weird stuff that Carie and I have been talking about. What are we going to talk about, Carie?
Well, there's an odd story of Jack Murphy and someone that he is affiliated with who was a member of his group.
The liminal order. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are talking about Jack Murphy and the kind of salacious nature of that story. But what kind of piqued my interest is that this guy who was the mass shooter in Denver last week wrote a novel. Actually, he's a novelist. He wrote several novels. He also appeared on a podcast with Zuby, and which is kind of random. And it turns out that he seems to have replicated one of the mass killing scenes in one of his books when he went out and did the deed. And the reason that winds up becoming interesting to me is because if you followed the show for a while and you know that we were interested in things like predictive programming, the idea that somebody would write a novel and then go out and then execute a bunch of people based on the idea that they've committed to words and published, and then you tie them into this kind of faux right wing manosphere kind of boys club, and it starts to kind of there are so many coincidences that it starts to really kind of look like predictive programming or like some kind of a MK Ultra psychological warfare operation. And I know that sounds crazy, but man, when you have that many things connected, it's really odd, don't you think, Carie?
It is really odd. The whole story is really odd, and I guess that's one thing that I wonder is what really unraveled it. Was it this guy going and committing these atrocities, or was it Murphy himself?
Could you? I don't know if I understood what you just said because I was reading. So.
Well, I'm wondering what unraveled the story as a whole. Was it Murphy, or was it the McLeod guy or McLeod?
Right. Because one of the things that was odd is that when I started talking to you about it, you had never even you hadn't heard the mass shooting story, right? It kind of like flew under the radar. It's like, oh, this guy shoots a bunch of people, and then you didn't even hear about it. And then when you connect that story to the Jack Murphy intrigue, then it starts to look really, really weird.
Right.
And then also the guy, he was a writer, and I haven't watched the interview. I mean, there's so much stuff to kind of digest that I hope the viewers will bear with us that we're just kind of like learning this stuff too. So if you've got anything to like add into the mix, we'll certainly check the comments. But this guy seems to be like some random guy who wrote some novels, and then he winds up on Zuby's podcast. And, Zuby's kind of a big deal. And so, this guy, his pen name was Roman McClay. It looks like his Twitter account is still around. Let me see if I can share that. Share. And Brave tab. Roman McClay. Let's share that. So you can see that the Roman McClay, they've taken down a bunch of his stuff. I just saw a tweet a few minutes ago that said that Amazon had taken down his books, but his author's Twitter account is still there. And let's see, pinned tweet April 23rd, 2020. Last time he tweeted on this account, I guess, was May 3rd, 2020. So, you know, he's, you know, he had, you know, he had his social media profiles. He had a company. You said that he had a. You were doing some background. You said he had a company, Black Ink or something.
Yeah, it was like Black Flat Ink or something like that. Corp. He used it to publish his books. He's also really into tattoos. Um, so I actually thought that it had something to do with that, but it looks like he used it to publish
All right, so
his books.
Ron is saying that he hasn't heard about Jack Murphy or any of the mass shootings. So Jack Murphy is a kind of a manosphere guy who inserted himself into the kind of right wing media about a year and a half ago. It's interesting because the people always have like this origin story, right? And so supposedly he was a blogger who blogged about men's issues and kind of right wing things, and then somehow he got outed, and he was a school teacher, I believe, or he worked for a
Hmm.
school, or he worked for a school. I think that he worked for a school, and when his blog got when he got doxxed, he lost his job, and then there was a bunch of people on the right who kind of jumped to his rescue. And it reminds me a lot of these kind of origin stories. Ben Shapiro, you know, after he graduated from Harvard Law School, moved back to Los Angeles, and he wrote a book. And what he did is that he used his position, you know, both of his parents were in the entertainment industry, to go interview a bunch of people about what they really thought about quote unquote conservatives, and then he basically published this book and outed a bunch of leftist, you know, Hollywood types for being leftist Hollywood types. Oh, big surprise! But that became his entree, right? And then he got hired by Andrew Breitbart, and he became the editor at large at Breitbart. So people seem to have these kind of like origin stories, right? It's how they first become introduced into the media. And so Jack Murphy was introduced through adversity, let's just say, and kind of picked up the right wing MAGA mantle and started, you know, using the, you know, what I call neurolinguistic programming techniques in order to kind of endear himself to people on the right. And he eventually winds up becoming a guest host on Tim Pool, and he's on Tim Pool quite often. As kind of the he seems to be like the fill-in guest. Like if they can't get a major guest, and they bring Jack in, and so cut to, it turns out that before the Manosphere blog posting that he got doxxed for, that he had an active live streaming sex for money business that he had going. And apparently some of those videos still exist on the internet. They're still on some, I guess, on some of the adult, although a lot of the adult sites take clips from other sites and then they restream them. So apparently they're still out there. And nobody was really aware of this until somebody in a chat room, he was being interviewed by Sydney Watson and who's the other guy at the Blaze?
Schaefer.
Yeah, Elijah
Elijah.
Schaefer. And somebody in the chat room asked him about it. Sydney Watson turned around and asked him, and he kind of flipped out. I may actually have a video of, I may actually have that video pulled up here someplace.
I don't know that they were asking about the video though. They were asking about his article that he wrote on cuckoldry, I think.
Oh,
And
on cuckoldry, yes. And
and he was saying that's we don't talk about that.
yeah, it was like an off limits thing, and he flipped out and told Sydney Watson to go F herself on the Blaze of all places, which
Yeah.
so. And it's funny because I tweeted out earlier today that I thought that the Streisand effect may be displaced by the oh, come on, Peter, who's the doctor?
Malone.
Malone. Yeah, the Streisand effect might get replaced by the Malone effect, and somebody cleverly responded to my tweet that it's better than the Murphy effect, right? Because it does seem that if Jack Murphy wanted to get the most amount of coverage out of this, he would have reacted exactly the way that he did. So anyway, yeah, Malone. There we go. Somebody says VORNGO. I don't know what that means. Lee and Ben both came up through Breitbart. Lee Stranahan. Okay, so back to my story. I'm getting distracted by chat. So people have these origin stories, and then they get inserted into the media, on one side or the other. And as people who watch this show may have followed the last couple of weeks, is that I've become hyper aware of dialectic and the implementation of it. I know that Jay Dyer has been talking about it for many years now, but using the expression without actually explaining how it's meant is difficult sometimes for some people. So let me just take a sidebar and kind of explain it. Anytime an argument is framed as something is either one way or the other, it's either, if you want to, you have two choices, right? Republican or Democrat, or red or blue, or liberal or conservative, right? Mm-hmm. And anytime an argument is framed like that, it's always fallacious. It's not true, because the reality is that there are many, many different ways to solve all kinds. Any problem that you've got, there's lots of different ways to solve it. And so the idea that there's a one way or the other, I think of George W. Bush saying, "You're either with the terrorists or you're against the terrorists." That's never true, right? And never, I understand, is a universal quantifier, and I mean it. It's never true, and so you have to kind of keep your guard up when people are presenting these kind of A/B cases to you, because it's a manipulation technique. So I know that there's a lot of people with blue checks that use this technique, and I have them all muted, by the way, at this point. If people are spamming what I call what are known as double binds, then I stop paying attention to them, because I figure that they're just kind of in it for the propaganda and not the information space. Mm-hmm. And so Jack went into the space in the representing the right, representing the manosphere, representing manly men, and then and this guy. Okay, I've got his Lyndon McLeod, who's AKA Roman McClay, was a member of Jack Murphy's boys club, the Liminal Order, where they teach manliness and manly men things, and part of the manosphere, right? But that also is interesting to me on a different vector, because Jack, my guess is Jack didn't know anything about this guy, except that he paid his subscription and became a member of the guy's club, and maybe they met each other, and maybe they traded messages with each other, and maybe Jack promoted his book, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Jack knew anything about him. And that kind of leads to the concept of compromise, and the problem that populist movements or subscription services or anything else like that has with infiltration, because like them or not, secret societies usually pick people that they want to be in the secret society. It's usually based on their family or their expertise in something. And then they have some kind of an initiation right, and the initiation right usually guarantees that the person is going to be loyal to that organization, whether or not they are compromising themselves or delivering blackmail to the organization in order to kind of ensure their fidelity. That stuff happens. But if you've got a situation where you've got an organization that's trying to make money on subscriptions, and they're taking anybody in who wants to pay the freight, it makes you highly susceptible to being infiltrated. And likewise, putting on red MAGA hats or orange sweatshirts, whatever it is, to claim that you're a part of an organization. Then you go and you do bad things. It always winds up having this backsplash effect on the organization, and so initiation winds up becoming a big deal. And I certainly assume that Jack Murphy wishes that he had vetted this guy a little bit better, as would Zuby or anybody else who kind of got caught in this web of intrigue.
Well, look, the police vetted him twice in 2020 and 2021, and they couldn't do anything.
Tell me about that, because you've read more about it.
Well, I don't have any details other than he was investigated twice in 2020 and 2021. The police looked at him. They had reports, but then they just walk away. I don't know what the reports were, but he had red flags.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because Cerno was doing the be a manly man thing in 2015 with. Well, it's not only Guerrilla Mindset. I think Mike had a kind of men's group kind of thing that he had going on. But what's also interesting about all of the men's groups, so my entree into hypnosis was a book called The Game by Neil Strauss. Highly recommend the book. It's a very, very good syllabus for hypnosis. I read the book because the book is ostensibly about how to pick up women, or Neil Strauss's adventure in becoming a pickup artist. But what's great about the book is that it gives you a really good broad overview on hypnosis and how hypnosis can be applied in real life. And so many of these all of the pickup artist groups, they're all involved in using neurolinguistic programming in order to manipulate people into doing or saying what you want them to do or say. And if you are going to read the book and you're in a good relationship with somebody, I suggest that you book club it, because if your wife or girlfriend catches you reading that book and it's salacious, and it's probably not a good thing for your relationship. But if you read it together, I think it's probably good. Anyway, all of those whether or not you go into you sign up for a course in neurolinguistic programming, or you sign up for a pickup artist course, they all have their kind of roots in neurolinguistic programming, which is this technique of listening and talking in order to get people to do what you want them to do. So it's a form of it's hypnosis. And the thing that's interesting is that a lot of times it's difficult to tell the difference between somebody who's actually just a really good articulate speaker and a hypnotist, because there's so much overlap in the techniques that you kind of lose yourself. I mean, one of the examples that I like to give is Tucker Carlson uses something called the yes ladder a lot, which is that he'll say a broad general statement and then he'll bring it in a little bit narrower. And the broad general statement is something that everybody who's watching him will agree to. And then Glenn Beck does the same thing. Sean Hannity, Rachel Maddow, they all do the same thing. So for their audience, they say something that's generally acceptable, a little bit narrower, a little bit narrower, a little bit narrower. And the things are people that generally, they are all statements that people who are watching will generally agree to. And then they'll say a fifth thing. And whatever the fifth thing is, regardless of how outrageous it is, because the person has just said yes 4 times in their head, they'll accept that and they'll be repeating it at a party the next day as if the words were their own, as if the thoughts were their own. And so that's called a yes ladder. So I'm always kind of like, when I watch people on TV, I'm always counting yeses. I'm always looking for double binds. It's either this or that kind of language. Because that stuff is all clearly manipulative, right? And so I'm kind of off on a bird walk here, but these are the things that I'm highly attuned to when I'm watching. Whether or not I'm watching Ben Shapiro or Scott Adams or Mike Cernovich or Tucker Carlson. I'm always my spidey senses are always up looking for that little hook that they put into your psyche in order to kind of drag you along.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see how the guilt by association might play out. I don't like that, but it's always there.
Yeah, I guess Zuby already kind of. I thought I had the Zuby. Yeah, I think I have. Well, I have Zuby's video, but I didn't have Zuby's tweet. He already kind of like jumped on Twitter and disavowed. He said, "Hey, I did this podcast with this guy, but I didn't know anything about it." It's like, who does? I mean,
Right. Yeah. How can we know everything about everybody? We can't.
Right. But it does, again, it does kind of, there's so many kind of overlapping tentacles here that it kind of looks like, if somebody gets inserted into the right wing sphere, okay, are there other forces, counterintelligence forces going off? Again, all of these things are happening in the background in order to kind of take people out in the media, because we're in a media warfare space, right? So you can think of Jack Murphy as a soldier, right? And he's in a combat position, and his combat position is the Tim Pool show, right? And then you've got somebody else that's on the other side that thinks, oh, Jack is really effective at what he's doing, so we need to figure out a way to take him out. Well, Jack didn't help himself at all by having his previous career and live streaming things on the internet. I mean, but it's funny because you think about somebody like Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, and the tens of thousands of people that died in nursing homes under his watch, and he gets taken out because he has inappropriate contact with a woman, right?
Right.
So anyway, let's see if we got any questions, or do you have any other comments, Carie?
No.
You don't?
Well, not at this very second.
All right. Fawn says, the few videos I saw with Jack Murphy, he mentioned being half Ashkenazi. I'm half Ashkenazi. And talked about the weird beard as power centers. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like an affectation, What do you think, Carie? Should I grow like a giant Jack Murphy beard?
That would be weird. Yeah. Maybe just try it out.
Yeah, you know what? I've tried to grow beards before in the past, and maybe that's where the Irish Scottish part of me doesn't like the Ashkenazi part. I find my hand becomes a permanent part of my face. Like I'm just always touching my beard, and I can't not touch it. So I've tried to do it before, but back. What is this? Back had to kick my Wi-Fi. Okay, good. I don't know what that means.
The modem? Kicking things does usually make them work.
Yeah, I'm lost. Can you fill me in, Carie?
If it doesn't work, if you kick it, a lot of times it'll make it work.
Right. Well, I do have this computer that's sitting next to me that sometimes the GPU makes some noise, and if I kick it, it stops making that noise. Anyway, yeah. So there's just a bunch of weird connections, right? Between Linda McLeod, Jack Murphy. Jack Murphy. So if Tim Pool is the pyramid head, right? He's the power center because Tim Pool is like one of the most influential voices in media right now, and Jack Murphy is on his show all the time. Is the attack really on Jack Murphy? Is it really on Tim Pool? Is it trying to put Tim Pool into a situation where, he's got to disavow or he's got to make some kind of a statement but in other words, does it take the gild off the lily as it were from Tim Pool by sliming Jack Murphy, and then you've got Tim Pool attached to Jack Murphy. Jack Murphy is attached to Linda McLeod. Linda McLeod is a mass killer. It's like, this is so this gives people like the Daily Beast and, Anna Merlin, all kinds of, although Anna Merlin writes books about how conspiracy theories aren't true, so she might have a hard time with it. But it's just a weird chain there, right? How all of those things are tied together.
It's all really weird. I mean, if he didn't go off on Sydney Watson, would any of this be a topic?
Yeah, well, I'm sure maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, and that's why, the Streisand effect became the Murphy effect, right? Because
no, Malone. You don't want it to be the Murphy effect.
I'm making a joke there, So yeah, the Malone effect. He clearly, by exploding and then creating a clip, he attracted. I wasn't paying any attention at all. Me
neither.
I knew. I've had some interactions with Jack in the past, and I was kind of nonplussed by him, and so I didn't. He's neither here nor there to me. Like, if he has something interesting to say, great. But most of the time, if I saw him on Tim Pool, I just watched something else. But his, like I said, the salacious nature of whatever he's doing is not as interesting to me as the fact that there's this connection to this guy who went and killed a bunch of people, and then Jack is also associated with a bunch of very prominent voices on media. It kind of feels like a counterintelligence operation to me.
Well, it's an interesting story. I think on the salacious part, maybe my favorite part is he's live streaming stuff and then saying it's revenge porn.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, and he did manage to get a guy's the guy who was reporting it on the Quartering, I think is the name of the channel.
Right.
He did manage to get the guy's Twitter account taken down. I think it might have come back.
I think the guy got it back, but it's been back and forth between those two, Jack Murphy and the Quartering.
Yeah. So Fawn says, well, it's funny. You can't last 30 seconds there. Here's the great thing. Here, inside tip for Tim Pool. Tim Pool does 30-minute videos that are 5 minutes long. So if you listen to the first 5 minutes of any Tim, and I think that's because Tim knows that most people drop off videos after 5 minutes, but 30-minute videos get higher ranked by YouTube. So he does 30-minute videos that are 5 minutes long. So you can watch 5 minutes of a Tim Pool video and probably get 98% of the value out of it. And I think that if Tim thought that he could do 5-minute videos and get ranked just as highly, he'd probably just do 5-minute videos. But that's just my 2 cents there.
Well, you double speed a lot too.
Double speed or 1.5 speed. It's my favorite thing. That's right. If you're watching, even if you're watching a podcast like this, because I'm speaking in a normal human, I'm not speaking in a DJ, advertising kind of deliberate pace where I'm talking using as many words as I possibly can in a really short period of time. Most people, when they're talking to each other, don't talk like that. But that's the way that we're used to hearing them. So if you increase the speed on this video, if you're watching it on YouTube, if you increase the speed to 1.5 or 2, 2 is really hard to listen to most of the time. But 1.5 is kind of a sweet spot, especially for kind of like meandering conversations like we're having right now. Was there any other weirdness from that story that you noticed?
I think it's kind of odd that the fiance is totally out of the picture as far as the story, but maybe it's not odd.
Jack's fiance?
Yeah. It's like, she's just like the silent partner.
She's just a naked woman running around in the background of the videos. I
don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't watch any of the videos that were, I looked at little thumbnails. That was as far as I wanted to go. Let me see. I learned from Peter, speed the audio up. Yes, Ron, you can you can move through videos a lot faster. You know, Robert Seffer at like 1.5, that's pretty good. You know, let's see what this person says. Can the loose mass killer connection be reframed as white domestic terrorism or whatever? Well, it is. Isn't he already he's an extreme right wing guy, right?
They're saying that based on what he was writing, even that he was like a, every ism.
Yeah. Every ism. What's that? I learned about tricky talkers at 12 years old. I was bored at my aunt's house, and she saved a Reader's Digest, and I found, oh, this is great. You know, Reader's Digest is a CIA op, right? Sure enough, I could see it happening in television commercials in 1959. Yeah. So what else, Carie? What else do we have to talk about today?
Well, I'm a little. No, I'm not bent out of shape. Annoyed that Newsom has made it so that all California will have mail-in ballots here on going forever. You don't need to do anything. They'll just show up to you, your ballot. And then if you want to vote in mail, if you want to vote in person, you still can for now.
But how many people are going to do? How many people are going to do that if they get their ballot in the mail, right?
Well, when we went to vote, I didn't want to vote on the machine. When we showed up to vote in person, I didn't want to vote on the machine. They don't make it easy not to vote on the machine. Good luck, voting on paper. So I think it's just a way to ease us into.
Yeah, well, I was looking at one of those vote by mail boxes the other day that says you don't need a stamp, right? So they can collect them. All, so they can collect them all in one place. And it's a felony if you do anything to the box, right? But I was thinking that the sidewalks around the boxes are probably a great opportunity for any kind of street artists that want to get out there and do some, messaging on the sidewalk. It's probably
there. You go.
Probably safe space.
It's not a federal sidewalk yet.
No, it's probably a misdemeanor as opposed to a felony. Ron is saying Manson and Koresh running roundup lots for child sex trafficking. I don't know if I understand what he's saying. Do you understand what Ron is saying there?
No.
Yeah, I don't know either. But while you're talking about Manson, I mean, if you read Tom O'Neill's book Chaos about Manson, CIA, and MK Ultra, and then you look at Lyndon McLeod and his behavior, you start to have lots of questions. This is why I'm wondering whether or not this is an operation. This is some kind of a psyop, and psyop doesn't mean that people didn't get killed. I don't want to get misunderstood like Alex Jones at Sandy Hook. People got killed. People getting killed was bad. I thought it was weird that he's part of the liminal order, which is this manosphere thing, but he winds up getting taken out by a woman cop. So that was another kind of like giant irony in the situation. What is this person saying? If I recall correctly, Jack and Tim Pool were some of the few based influencers that did not get smeared.
January 6th.
Okay.
It's under, yeah.
Well, Tim wasn't there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they...
I don't know what Jack was doing then, but that's where I met Carie. I met Carie. I met Carie halfway between the Capitol and the Supreme Court. In Lot 8, which is where the Alex Jones, Ali Alexander, and perhaps Donald Trump speech was supposed to take place if people hadn't broken into the Capitol. All right, what else you got for me today, Carie?
I was looking at comments.
Okay. You
That
can.
was in a thread you retweeted about Maxwell. I'm not. I don't know what that means, but
There was a giant thread that I retweeted
I
some
will.
kind of choice bits last night that kind of starts at the beginning with Maxwell's father, and actually it goes back to I'm sorry, it goes back to the 1920s with Prohibition and the Brofmans, and then it go. I don't know how much of it is true. I found a few select tweets and I retweeted them, and but it was very interesting how there was the assistant FBI director under J. Edgar Hoover went to work for one of Brofman's companies, which was a liquor company. So a company that was being policed by the FBI during Prohibition. After Prohibition was over, the deputy director of the FBI went to go work for that company. What else did I find out in that thread that was really interesting? Napoleon Bonaparte's grand nephew was Teddy Roosevelt's attorney general. Now, normally would go, oh, so somebody who is related to Napoleon was in the U.S. government. And normally I wouldn't think anything about that, except that I think that the Rothschilds put Napoleon in power. So, and I think that the Rothschilds were behind Napoleon the Third. Was it Napoleon the Third and his intrigue in Mexico when the French tried to take over Mexico? So when I see that Napoleon's grandnephew is the Attorney General of the United States under Teddy Roosevelt, I'm thinking, okay, there's a little banker thing going on there. It's kind of, and it's a club, and a Trump is in it. Yes. Yeah, the more that I dig into all of this stuff, the more that I think that there's a good possibility Donald Trump was just a big LARP. I don't want to believe that, but the more that he pimps his vaccine and splits his own base. I mean, he has to know that he's splitting his base. Do you think he knows that, Carie?
He should. Even during his rallies, every time he bring up the vaccine, people are booing. So is he deaf? Hi, Lisa.
Do you know her from IRL?
I know. No, not in real life, but kind of close.
All right, Chris says aliens are more interesting. Okay.
Well, they're coming, aren't they?
Right. Well, that's yeah. Have you noticed all of the alien drops that are happening lately? Dark Journalist, one of my favorite shows on YouTube. Dark Journalist, his ex steganography deep dives. There's all kinds of. There's a movie out right now, right? Don't Look Up. Mm-hmm. Which is about SMAUD or something.
Yeah.
And
that's what I heard.
And it apparently I think we're going to get our Academy screener soon, it's a here's what I know about it. It's a comedy, and apparently it makes all of the political parties look ridiculous, which is fantastic because the faster that most people understand that our country is not ruled by the political parties, and that we put all of this energy into believing that, then the better. But the timing is interesting because you've got the creation of Space Force, and then you have the UFO files supposedly are going to be declassified, and then you have the SMAUD movie come out that makes all the political. So the big idea is that if the COVID PSYOP fails, right? If Fauci and Gates don't actually achieve their global dominance that they're aiming for right now and get everybody vaccinated and get everybody in lockstep, if that fails somehow, then they're going to have to pull out a new trick, right? In order to unite humanity behind some kind of existential threat, right? So if it's in The Invisible Man, H.G. Wells, it's a story about a community that's terrified by something that they can't see, right? And then the other H.G. Wells story, War of the Worlds, is about humanity cowed, literally, I mean, treated like cattle by the Martians when they show up and start eating them and rendering them for whatever it is that they do. So if you have this existential threat, or if you've got this alien life form, there's all this work that's been done in order to be able to kind of get people moving in the right direction. So when I see a movie like Don't Look Up, then I have to wonder whether or not that's just more predictive programming. And, you could do predictive programming as a comedy. There's no rule that says that it's got to be serious and scare you. It has the same psychological effect. Andy Morris says, did COVID-19 come back? Neither.
That's funny. The first thing I thought when I saw that question was, why is it this or that? Like,
right, he's using it. There's maybe Andy Moore is just is kidding around, and he's throwing a double bind at us to see if we'll actually pick up on it. Batcave or lab leak? Neither. It was created in a lab that they claim it was leaked from, and then it left the lab, and then it was deployed somehow. I don't know how it was deployed.
Well, what did you call it today on Twitter?
What did
WMD?
Oh yeah. It's not a weapon of mass destruction. It's a weapon of mass delusion. Delusion?
Or mental destruction. Or
It
was something like that.
Yeah. Weapon of mental destruction. Right. WMD. There's lots of different ways you can spin it. But, it's a weapon of mass delusion. It's very effective. I give COVID-19 on a scale of 1 to 10 on PSYOPs. I give it a 9, and I'm only giving it a 9 because it still might not succeed. I think Klaus may not get his way, but I'm not sure. Doug Mackinson says deployed through vaping. Yeah, or maybe. I think that one.
I don't think so.
I don't know. One of the in Annie Jacobson's book Operation Paperclip, I think that there was a guy at Fort Detrick in that book that was working on aerosolizing viruses, and I think there was a kind of a famous experiment that they did in San Francisco where they were shooting viruses into the San Francisco fog to see how many people they could get sick. So yeah, maybe vaping, maybe something like vaping.
Maybe. I remember when the whole thing started and they talked about how it seemed that cigarette smokers were faring well beyond other people.
Yeah, Dr. Farrell called them COVID prevention sticks or something. He was puffing away. George Webb does predictive programming. Malone concurs. I'm not sure. I think George reads tea leaves a lot. John Cullen has an interesting theory that it's a cover for the 1918 flu reconstruction. Well, yeah, we could talk about 1918 flu for a second. It turns out I think that the 1918 flu was bacterial. It wasn't viral, which meant that if they had antibiotics back then, that there wouldn't have been a 1918 flu. Somebody can fact check me on that. These corrupt PSY operators aren't making as much money as Musk. Well, is Musk making money? Or is Musk have... there's $23 trillion missing from the budget. The last time somebody checked, there was $23 trillion missing from the United States budget. And there are a lot of people who speculate that went into space, that went into kind of space projects. So, I look at the stuff that Musk is doing, and certainly it's amazing, okay? And I don't take anything away from him, but it requires a lot of capital to do what he's doing, and a lot of that capital is getting funneled from someplace. So
A lot of it is taxpayer money.
Yeah.
He
I
gets
mean,
a shit ton of grants and loans.
well, and military contracts, right? That's the big one. And you get military contracts, and a lot of the military contracts are dark budget, which might be the part of the 23 trillion that's missing. So, who knows? Who knows? Chris, do you have any questions about aliens that you wanna ask? You got anything else for me, Carrie?
Someone said in the comments about Mars attacks. Who's that?
Yeah, Mars.
Oh, Andy Moore. Mars attacks is the most accurate depiction of alien invasion.
Okay, so if you just click on it, Carrie,
Yeah.
it'll pop in there. So that's what I
Oh,
did. It's it's the well, how do we know that's the most? How do we know how do we know we're not aliens? You know,
it's a good question.
it's like maybe we're the aliens, and maybe the aliens just they dropped us off. Maybe they dropped their kids off and then they haven't come back from the movie theater or whatever it is. But Mars Attacks. My story about Mars Attacks is that I always thought it was a cute and funny movie until I showed it to my daughter, who's probably like, I don't know, 10, when I showed it to her, and it gave her bad dreams. She still has bad dreams to this day based on Mars Attacks. So I guess it wasn't as cute and funny as I thought it was, but there it is.
Now I'm not sure if I should watch it.
No aliens and breakaway civilizations are a more interesting reason for it all. No aliens and breakaway civilizations. Do you know what Chris is saying?
Are a more interesting reason.
It all?
No, sorry.
Yeah, I wish I knew what you were saying, because then it would give me something to talk about. Okay.
Sharing DNA.
Humans are sharing DNA with the rest of life on Earth, not aliens. And Ron is saying we are Anunnaki and chimp mix. Okay, that one.
Flurona. Oh, I've heard that one too, yeah.
Flurona? Is that like my Sharona? My Flurona. Okay. 80% of our DNA consists of remnants of ancient viruses, and another 40% is made up of repetitive strings of genetic letters that is also thought to have a viral origin. Yeah, it's interesting because I was reading RFK's book. I haven't finished it yet. I'm still 3/4 the way through. I started reading this book Tracy turned me on to. Oh, we could talk about that for a second. Called The King in Orange. And but in the RFK book, he's talking about how HIV is a retrovirus, and that we're literally swimming in an ocean of retroviruses. That is, there's zillions of viruses that we come in contact with all the time that just have no effect on us because either they're ineffective as viruses or they our immune system is very good at just cleaning them up and getting rid of them. And so the contention in the book is that HIV does not cause AIDS. It just happens to be a ride-along retrovirus that happened to show up in some of the people who had AIDS syndrome, and that it doesn't actually cause AIDS, which kind of is a good setup in that book for Fauci, and Fauci was the main driving force behind the HIV causes AIDS mythology, and so there's a lot of blocking and tackling that went on with AIDS and HIV and AZT and other 3-letter words 20 years ago that kind of presaged what happened with the current sickness. Okay, what is this? Okay, we already saw that. Here, Mark says viruses are essential to life. The bacteria use viruses to replicate. Most virons are messaging systems rebranded as pathogens to push genetic research and jabs. I think that's probably correct. For those of you who don't watch Mark, Housatonic ITS is his channel, and Mark is the deepest deep diver out there. So if you want to know about any of the names that you see in current events, and you want to find out who they are and who their father was and who their father's uncle's girlfriend was, Mark's got all that information on his website. So. What else, Carie?
I don't know. I want to know if you think that by having universal mail-in ballots for California, if more people will unregister to vote and say, it's obviously a scam, I'm not going to be part of it.
Well, should we pimp that right now? Carie and I have gotten to a point where we think that if you're still voting, then you're still part of the system. You can position yourself as opposition, but the system's clearly rigged. So if you'll continue to play that, you're just validating the system by continuing to play. So we've both unregistered to vote. They don't make it easy. They make it 500 times easier to register to vote than to unregister to vote. But we've done that, and so if you,
I think it matters too where you live, though. California, it's just, what are you doing? What was I doing every time I voted, other than wasting time?
Yeah, or pretend, or it's hopium, right? It's the hopium thing. It's like, Ron said. Well, Ron, you make a very good point, Ron. Okay, the original double bind was Democratic Republicans and Whigs, right? Which got replaced by Republicans and Democrats. But if you understand that the two-party system is a dichotomy, it is a dialectic, and its purpose is to take control away from the people and give it to the people who control those two parties, then you understand how we got into this mess. Again, I'm repeating myself, but if you take a look at C. Wright Mills' The Power Elite, and you understand that Madison and Adams and Jefferson had this concept, it's easy if you move. Well, Chris is in North Carolina, I think. So I see when you say move, I see the big smile on Carrie's face. It's like,
I'm not opposed.
Carrie's like, Anyway, let me just finish the dichotomy. So, and then we'll talk about the orange thing. So the original idea of the United States was this thing that they call, that Mills refers to as an American public, where people are having discussions. So I'm talking to Carie, and Carie may not agree with me, and then there's people in the chat room, and they may not agree with us, and they'll ask us questions, and then we have this kind of rich debate going back and forth. And the idea of the American public is that the people who all believed in the same thing would get together, and they would elect people to go to Congress and then fight for what they believed in. And so it's got this kind of like bottom up kind of construct where people are talking to each other down here, and then we elect people, and then they go and those people talk to each other up here. That's the opposite of what we've got. We've got something that Mills refers to as a mass society, where you've got people, half the people are watching Fox News, and half the people are watching MSNBC or CNN, okay? And these people form their opinions based on what they watch, and these people form their opinions on what they watch, and all the other ideas in the world get left on the wayside. All of the other smart arguments that people could be having between each other are left out, because everything gets boiled down to, do you want red or do you want blue, okay? That's not democracy, okay? That's a pretend fake thing that's designed as a psyop in order to get everyone to believe that they're participating in a government. But I would make I don't know how you do it, but I would probably say that any political party that has more than 100 people is illegal. I could start there. But
right. Illegal? What happens?
I don't know. Actually, what I would like to do is I would like to throw it open to the demos and figure out a better way of electing people other than having mass media, because the media and the political parties are connected to each other. The media loves how much money the political parties spend on the media, and the political parties love how the media promotes their ideas. And so the media and the political parties together are really what has kind of like destroyed any kind of semblance of democracy in this republic. And that needs to end, which is why I'm always suggesting to people, people are always posting clips from Fox News or somebody going back, whatever. Get rid of cable. Like today, I have cable. I have Time Warner cable, I think, but I have no cable. I just have internet. And yeah, what's funny is they keep sending me these things in the mail. My cable bill would go down if I had cable television. I think it would go down like $20 or $30 a month, at least for a year. And so I get letters in the mail all the time with all these upsells on trying to get me to re-sign up for my cable, but I won't do it. And the main reason I won't do it is because I don't want to give them money. I don't want 1 cent of my money going to Fox News or to CNN or to MSNBC or to any of those other companies. I want all the media companies to fail. I'd like everybody to be YouTube creators at this point, or some kind of creator, Rumble,
Sure.
All right. Does anyone else think orange theme relates to Ali or Ye? I haven't gotten to the orange part of the King in Orange yet. Orange is different. I haven't talked to Ali at length about why he picked the orange, but I think he picked orange because it wasn't red and it wasn't blue. And it wasn't purple, which was a mix of red and blue. Right? So I think that he was just trying to pick something different. That's my guess. Let me see. Ron Fox says, in the West, the left-right paradigm is inextricable. I don't know that it's inextricable, because I think if the media fails, then the political parties fail. Again, you've got this symbiosis between media and political parties, and that's why, like, probably the worst thing that you could do to the political party system is to get rid of cable TV. Cause them to all go bankrupt. Fox News and MSNBC and CNN. I mean, Fox News is in a much better position, but we need to stop the use of electronic voting machines. I am behind enemy lines in California. Carie and I are both behind enemy lines. We're in the enemy HQ in the Pacific Palisades. And Carie said earlier that she took her ballot that she printed out into the voting center because they don't have polling places anymore. And did you manage to file your paper ballot, or did you have to use the machine?
I wanted to.
Yeah.
I ended up using the machine.
Yeah, they don't let you not do it. That's the problem.
They make it really hard.
And now it's all going to be by mail. So it's all fraud all the time. Now, one of the things that I tweeted out a couple weeks ago that I thought would be interesting is if somebody like Elon Musk said, you know what, this entire voting system is fraudulent, and I'm going to create a new system where people can, we'll put all of the issues that are up for election up on our own system. There'll only be one or two differences. One is it's not a secret ballot, and two is that everybody who votes is going to be completely identified, right? So you have a complete 100% audit trail. Because I think that the secret ballot part of the Constitution is a problem. and it's caused a problem. And
no one ever talks about that. No one ever brings that up as an issue, one way or the other.
Yeah, well, my thought is that if you're not brave enough to tell everybody what you're voting for, I mean, people put lawn signs on, they put a button or a sticker on. You know, it's like they wear a T-shirt, they get a red hat, whatever it is that they do. If you're not brave enough to let people know what you voted for, then maybe you shouldn't vote. You know, maybe you can just be a sheep. You know, but the thought is that if Elon Musk or someone like Elon Musk, I can't think of who else probably is in a position to be able to do that. I wouldn't trust Bill Gates if he did it. Put up a system where instead of registering to vote, you go register on the e-vote. It's Elon vote system. If Elon gets 200 million people to sign up on Elon vote, and then they vote on things, then there might be a challenge, you know, at like who the electors are at the electoral college, or who actually gets sworn into office. If somebody has a bonded, certified count that shows that that's 100% accurate and verifiable, and they've got a different vote count than the official elections.
I'd like to see that as a national discussion, just that all by itself.
Yeah, it would be great.
Secret ballot. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, blockchain, Rick, blockchain. You know, there is a company, they're called Votes, VOATZ, and they're out of, Boston, I want to say. They're a spin out of MIT Media Lab, I think. And they have a biometric blockchain voting solution. So they use biometrics in order to verify that you are who you are. And they still have they still use it for secret voting. And if you know anything about blockchain, the nice thing about it is that you know what your wallet number is for your vote, right? So you can go and you can audit and you can make sure that your vote got counted and it got cast. They maintain the secret vote, the secret ballot initiative on that. And they also have a completely auditable, 100% verifiable system that would make sure that every vote gets counted and that every person can validate that their vote got counted. The downside of that, as opposed to just getting rid of the secret ballot, would be that you're dependent upon everybody going and checking to make sure that their vote got counted. And I don't think that you can, I don't think it's pragmatic or realistic to believe that that could happen. But, you know, there might be other ways technical around it. Again, with a secret ballot, there's always going to be some questions, right, about whether or not the vote count actually represents the people, what people actually cast, because there is no direct way to connect it unless you use something like a blockchain. What's the name? He said, what's the name of that system? It's Votes, VOATZ. Yeah, I mean, to your point, if my medical status isn't a secret anymore, then why the hell should my voting status be a secret? Right?
Well, I'd argue that both should be.
That both should be private.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. But see, people have already given up on, they've already given up. This is why I think that giving up on secret ballots should be a slam dunk, because people willfully just gave up their right to medical privacy. Like,
look, with social media, we've given things up for a long time, I think. It looks like the internet's not so great right now.
Oh, wait. That's because... Okay, we figured this out last week. We figured this out last week, folks. I have a backup system that's called a Backblaze, and they have a suck ass interface because they don't allow you to turn it off. There's a button that says pause backup. And so I paused it, and before I do all these things, I turn off Dropbox, and I pause Backblaze, and I turn on Do Not Disturb, and I do all these other things. But last week, after I turned off Backblaze, it just turned back on again in the middle of broadcast, and it destroyed my video signal. So I fixed it. Backblaze. If anybody from Backblaze is watching this, make it so that you can turn it off. Just say pause, off. Okay, because I want it off. David Haglund. Is it any better system in European countries with 10 to 15 parties and their coalition governments, or here with the DNC GOP two choices? They're both problematic, and they're problematic for the same reason, and that is because you use as Mills explains in his book The Power Elite, people largely make their decisions based on information that they get from media, as opposed to having conversations with one another and intellectual arguments with one another in order to come up with rational solutions to things. So, in Europe, you have 10 to 15 parties picking, but like there may be 15 parties in the UK, but there's the Tories, and there's the Labour Party, and then there's the spoiler, right? The party that determines. So I think political party systems in general are problematic, and until you solve the media problem, it doesn't really matter, because it's always going to boil down to two major players and a spoiler. And the spoiler is going to win every once in a while. You're going to have a Ronald Reagan every once in a while, or a Donald Trump every once in a while, because that's the pressure relief valve in order to get the people who aren't completely in line with the dialectic back onto the dialectic. So it's really, and this is why I think, Andrew Breitbart was so smart when he was talking about politics being downstream from culture. If you control television, it doesn't matter what political party people are in. I mean, look at what's going on right now with the hawkish Democrats, the warmonger neocon. They're Democrats, but they're acting like neocons, and that's because there isn't any difference between the Democrats and neocons right now. The framing of D or R, red or blue, is all completely confounded. And Mills points out in the book that that's been a problem with the United States since its formation. If you were a conservative in 1776, it meant you were a Tory. It meant you supported the king. And so one of the things that Mills talks about in that book is that being a conservative, that Americans are largely conservative, but the values that they're trying to conserve are liberal. They are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all men are created equal. And that there's always been this problem of people calling themselves conservatives or calling themselves liberals. In the 50s, the communists just started calling themselves liberals or progressives, and the idiot Republicans let them get away with it. They let them take the moniker of liberal, and the reality is most of the people that I know that are Republicans, big R Republicans, are people who believe in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all men are created equal. That makes them liberals, right? But so we have this new kind of like fake title, which is classical liberal. Oh, you're a classical liberal. Like, no, I'm a liberal. They're communists, right? And, if people who call themselves conservatives realize that they're actually liberals and call themselves liberals, you'd find out that you probably have, if you read Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book, it's basically a book about fascism, and except for some kind of stupid digs that he takes at Trump, it's probably the only uncited stuff in his book is his comments about Trump. Then you'll find that most people are not into foreign intrigue. Most people are not into blowing up brown people. Most people are into live and let live, and don't take. Bill Whittle puts it. The two core values of Americans are don't take my stuff and leave me alone. And if we could just get back to don't take my stuff and leave me alone, I think we'd be good. I don't know if that answered your question, but RT3 says every time Republicans win a majority in an election, Democrats claim their majority isn't sufficient to rule, thus we must compromise. No such public relations game. Yeah, that's because it's all fake. Okay? Stop playing. Stop giving them money. Stop watching them on television. It's all fake. That's all. I mean, people think that I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. I think Washington D.C. is the biggest Broadway show set that's ever been created. It's all fake. The only difference between Washington, D.C. and Broadway is that Washington, D.C. can kick your door down and throw you in jail and take your money. Other than that, forget it. It's High School Musical. Commies steal everything, including words, redefine them instead of... Yeah, but we don't push back. They take a word and we go, oh, okay, you can have that word. And then they take another word and we say, oh, okay, you can have that word. We don't ever push back. We just need to say no. I think there's two kinds of people in the world. I think there's Americans, and Americans believe in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and all men are created equal. And I believe there are totalitarians. It's too hard to call them totalitarians, though, because it's too opaque to people. There's fascists are socialists, and communists are socialists. And so you could call them communofascists or totalitarians, whatever they want. They want central power. They want a sovereign government and a slave population. Americans want a sovereign individual and a slave government. It's not more complicated than that. And I think that there's Americans everywhere. That's why I think that, you have people like Lauren Southern and Milo Yiannopoulos and Gavin McInnes and Ezra Levant and all of these other people who are more American than many Americans that I know, right? And maybe it's because they appreciate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness more than people who grew up here. But I think that there are Americans everywhere, and if you really want to destroy globalism, then what you're going to do is you're going to create Americanism everywhere. It's not America everywhere. It's Americanism, right? It's life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all men are created equal. And whatever the scaffolding is that you need to get to that point. So, yeah, stop voting for Republicans. Stop voting until there's a better system. If 100 million people unregistered to vote, somebody like Elon Musk might pop up and say, you know what, I got a technological solution for this, and people might buy into it. I don't know, but it's not going to happen unless you just say, I'm not going to play anymore. And for the time being, I'm not playing anymore. What else? What did Ron say? The USA commies get faked out and used by thieves. Just like, well, again, there's two kinds of people, right? There's people who actually believe that the system is a valid, legitimate system, and then there's everybody else. The reason that criminals are criminals is because they think that a policeman said to me once, he said, laws only punish people who get caught. They don't prevent people from doing anything. And criminals understand that, which is why they commit crimes. They think they're not going to get caught. And, put my finger in the air, I think most of them are probably right. My guess is that most criminals in the United States of America, most criminals in the world, probably get away. I think Henry Kissinger is a criminal. I think William Barr is a criminal. I think, to a large extent, most of the people who are in Congress are criminals. Nancy Pelosi is a criminal. Mitch McConnell is a criminal. I think they're all criminals, but they get away with it because they understand the system well enough to know how to work between the lines in order to get what they want and not wind up getting charged with anything. So criminals understand that there are limits to the law, and some of them get caught. Ghislaine Maxwell got caught, and but I can tell you there's probably a dozen more Ghislaine Maxwells out there in the world right now picking up the slack that Ghislaine left because she's no longer in that business and doing that kind of stuff. And they're still continuing. So if you want to play the pretend game that your vote counts, or the pretend game that look, Congress has not passed a budget since 2009. It's been all continuing resolutions. That's their only job in the Constitution. Okay, they haven't done their job for 12 years. Is there anybody on CNN calling them out on that? Is there anybody on Fox News calling them out on that? No, it's fake. It's fake. The government is fake. And
I don't really see us as a serious country, and I don't think I will see us as a serious country until there is accountability, and that's people making, like, we're not going to accept this. You will be held accountable. There is only no as an answer.
I mean, the real government is the real governing factor in the United States of America is the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve controls the State Department, the CIA, and the Pentagon. Okay? And if you understand that that's the actual power structure, and that the purpose of our democracy is to fool you into believing that the Federal Reserve is not in control of the State Department, the CIA, and the Pentagon, then things make complete sense to you. You know, it's very simple to understand what's going on. It's very simple to look around and see what's happening. But, you know, if you believe that AOC is actually a threat, or Rand Paul is going to do something that's going to change the world, or the second coming of Donald Trump or DeSantis, you know, if we cash out, the aggressive will celebrate and grab all the power. They have all the power. You have no power. You can be opposition and you can validate their position, or you can be a dissident and live in your own truth. Those are your two choices. Okay? But if you want to keep playing their game, you know, your blood pressure is going to be really high, and, you know, you're going to drink too much, and you're not going to get enough exercise, and you're going to throw your remote control at the TV set. A lot. I'm sorry, Ron. It's the big, I watched Amanda Milius on Tim Pool last week, and she was apologizing for delivering black pills. I don't apologize for it. I'm an unapologetic realist. At least that's my reality. I have a little chart I can probably pull up that illustrates what I'm talking about.
This comment is true. Nothing changes until a lot of people stop sitting on their hands.
Yep.
We still have the election results from November 3rd, where there were more votes cast than people existed. Nothing, like, it's still just there. That happened. We're not going to do anything about it.
Okay, let me see if I can find this thing.
Where do anarchists sit? Where do anarchists sit in all this? I don't know.
Well, I think that, you know, anarchy is always going to be kind of a transition, and I would say that unregistering to vote is kind of an anarchist approach, and understanding that the government is fake, and that there are things that you can do, that, you know, that there is a criminal mindset, okay, and that not all criminals get caught. I'm not telling anyone to be a criminal. I don't think that that's necessarily a good idea. But if you understand that that's the real world that we live in, then you can, you know, have a more pragmatic appreciation for what's really happening. Let me see, window or GPP. Here we go. I'm going to share this. So I'm going to get rid of Andy's thing. And maybe I'll just get rid of us for a second there. But, the idea here, this is a chart that was made by Catherine Austin Fitts. I still have to update it. Carrie will help me update it later. But, this is the way she calls it, the global public-private partnership. And public-private partnership is fascism. If you know anything about the economic theory of fascism, it's a close collaboration between a federal government and all of the major industries, and so what the World Economic Forum kind of perfected in this is inverting fascism, where in fascism you've got a government that is telling the oligarchy what to do. And after World War II, Klaus Schwab and his cohort flipped the mix and decided that they would get the banks and the oligarchs to tell the governments what to do. So on the top of this power chart, you've got the Bank of International Settlements, which is the bank for it's the reserve bank for all the reserve banks. And then below that, you've got the central banks. So you've got the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, the Deutsche Bank, Bank of Japan, all of this. And then below that, you've got, all of these kind of NGO think tanks: World Economic Forum, Council on Foreign Relations, Chatham House, Club of Rome, Rockefeller's Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg Group. These are the people who decide what the policies are for the planet moving forward. So this is where climate change comes from. Okay, it doesn't come from scientists. It comes from these people. They have a political agenda. I don't know why. I mean, I can guess. There's lots of theories about climate change. But they decide where we're going to go, and then they distribute that through the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the IPCC, the World Bank, the World Health Organization, various philanthropists. You got Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and blah, blah, blah. George Soros, global corporations, all these woke corporations. They're not woke by accident. NGOs and captured religious institutions. So the Catholic Church is going through some kind of major kind of conflagration right now with Francis, right? And so they distribute the messages, and then national governments and scientific authorities, they enforce the policies that are made from the top. And then between the enforcers and us, because we're at the bottom of this power structure, are the propagandists. So you've got mainstream media, you've got fact checkers, you've got social media platforms, things like that. They're the people who keep us in line. They're the people who feed us all of the information that makes us believe that when we vote that we're actually being effective. So if you understand that the power structure of the world goes from the top down in this chart, not from the bottom up, then you'll be in a much better position to actually, understand how to make your way forward and how to navigate the news and how to understand who to listen to and who to not listen to. And you could disagree with me if you don't think that this is true. I mean, there's lots of my friends who are quote unquote conservatives who think that the Republic is a real thing. They went to Claremont, or they have a master's degree in political science, and they believe that this stuff actually is effective. And I think Rand is way more influential on the direction of the country than the Democrats or the Republicans.
You've made a few people uncomfortable with your no voting message.
I'm glad. Good. You should be uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. I was really uncomfortable when I did it until I did it. It's kind of like being a little kid and having a tooth that you haven't really pulled out, and you get it tied on a string, you pull it out, and it feels better. That's what it was like.
Rand Corp, yeah.
Yeah, Rand or the Brookings Institute or, uh, Heritage Foundation, like, uh, you know, when Obamacare happened, what was it, 25,000 pages or something?
It was huge.
Nobody read it, right? Where does that come from? It comes from some think tank, right? Some think tank has been writing that legislation for years, and it gets pushed into the Congress. They get two sponsors, and it gets pushed into the Congress. Nobody reads it. Then it becomes a tug of war about how many votes you're going to get, and the votes are based on graft and corruption. How much money am I going to get? How am I going to sell this to my? If you watch this movie, The Forum, which I highly recommend, can't watch it in the United States unless you do a trick. You have to go. I'll post a link in the description below when this is over. But if you use a VPN and you go into the Netherlands and you buy the movie, then it will show up in your Vimeo in the United States of America, and then you can go watch it. But it's a great movie. It's about Klaus Schwab. There's 9 different versions of the movie. The movie's in 9 different languages. And there are 3 different versions of the movie, and you cannot watch it in the United States. Klaus doesn't want anybody in the United States watching it. But if you do my VPN trick, then you can watch it. And what happens in that movie is that all these politicians come pouring into Davos with all of these billionaires. And the billionaires sit the politicians down and say, this is what you're going to do. And the politician goes, well, how am I going to do that? And they say, well, we've created this NGO over here that's budgeted with $100 million. And then we've got this $50 million marketing campaign over here that we've got done. And then we have this other organization that we can use. And we think that if we give you enough media support and enough NGO support and all this other support, that you can push your democracy into the direction that we want it to go in. And the politician, and it's not said in the movie, but the subtext is, and you'll become wealthy, So like Jacinda, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, I think her net worth was $1 million before COVID started, and her net worth is now $24 million.
It's a lot. And she was one of those youth global leaders, or she's with West.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum has 2 different groups, global leaders and global leaders of the future, or something like that. Gavin Newsom was one of those. Eric Garcetti, I believe, was one of those.
I think
so. All roads. There's a game you can play. Somebody was asking me in a chat room the other day about money laundering, and we were talking about Barack Obama's, Barack and Michelle's $65 million guarantee from Penguin Publishing. Because I'm not sure that anybody sells $65 million worth of books. Maybe J.K. Rowling. But certainly not those. I don't think. I think you're probably talking about magnitudes of difference between a Barack Obama book and a J.K. Rowling book. And so, if you look at who owns Penguin, Penguin is owned by Bertelsmann, and Bertelsmann is a member of the World Economic Forum. And so you look at a $65 million book deal for the Obamas, and it's just a way for the World Economic Forum to make sure that the Obamas are well taken care of for some other thing that they did. It's not more complicated than that.
A lot of things are complicated, like nonprofits.
Okay, so some nonprofits. Okay, so here's the deal with nonprofits. I believe that most nonprofits, when they're created, are good. And what happens is that they become co-opted. If you go back to in the background of this image, you've got the all-seeing eye, right? And I might have another better way I can add that, but You've got the top of you got the pyramid, you got the eye on the top, and then you have the unfinished pyramid on the bottom. And basically what that represents is that as you get better at something, you've got a charity and you're taking care of homeless people, and, you become the best charity at taking care of homeless people in the world. Eventually what will happen is as you become more powerful, you'll be a more likely acquisition target for the all-seeing eye. They'll come and they'll start putting board members in. All of these foundations that are ostensibly set up to do these great educational things have all wound up becoming co-opted, because if you're going over 50 years and you can knock off one board member at a time until you control the board of directors of that corporation or that NGO, you control that NGO. Or if, like Bill Gates and George Soros do, you become the major funder of that NGO, then the NGO does what you tell them to do. So, it's a problem.
Right. I haven't seen any updates on the Salvation Army story.
What is the Salvation Army story?
Well, they put out something that told their supporters that you needed to, I think, repent of your whiteness or something like that. It was critical race theory crap. And people are like, never mind, I'm not ever donating again. And then it just dropped off the face of the earth.
Yep. And the Salvation Army was one of the ones that we thought that had not been corrupted yet, right?
Well, they seem to be kind of holding on. I don't know. A couple years ago in Santa Monica, they made it so that their boutique store was going to be open on Sunday, and I was like, that's not a good sign.
Mark wants to know if your knitting is a cat.
My knitting is not a cat.
That is Carrie's knitting. Carie has been knitting a shawl. She's very good at knitting. So if you need any bespoke knitting, hit her up.
Sure. It's my favorite pastime.
Anyway, so I don't know if I blackpilled enough people tonight.
I don't know.
Tracy was talking to me earlier. Tracy will come back. Tracy wants me to get Amanda Milius on our show, and so I pinged her. She was concerned. Amanda was concerned that she was being too blackpilled for Tim Pool's show. So I invited her here because I told her that it wasn't possible for her to blackpill us. Anyway, what's up with Antarctica? I don't know. Lots of people go down there. There's lots of theories. There's UFO theories. There's Nazi theories. There's flat Earth theories. There's all kinds of theories. I don't know. It's cold. I do have a friend though, Sebastian Copeland, who he claims, and he live streamed the whole thing, that he kited across by himself, solo, all the way across Antarctica, with a sled and a kite. I think it's on YouTube.
Wow.
Anyway, is there anything else you'd like to talk about, Carie?
I think we're all caught up. I don't know.
All right.
Who knows?
We may be, and unless anybody's got a question. Once again, I see Mark is still here. Thanks, Mark. Everybody go check out Housatonic Live, because I think Mark has been blown off of Twitter. I used to look forward to his tweets all the time. And Mark is like an alpha and omega poster. Okay? He does these 3-hour deep dive videos where he will pick one subject and he'll just, find every speck of dust that's available on the internet about the subject. But then he also does 1-minute videos with his phone where he shoots videos of the screen about whatever it is kind of the topic du jour, and he just throws these little bites out. So I call it the alpha and omega approach.
Okay, yeah. So it's 3 hours or 1 minute.
Yeah. He's playing both ends of the extreme.
Right.
It's pretty funny. It's difficult to be optimistic. No, it's not. Ask me if I'm optimistic. Yes, I am optimistic. I'm optimistic because I have given up on a failed idea. And the failed idea was the belief system that I grew up with. And once you realize that it's all fake, you can start to move in a good direction. You can start to figure things out. But the hopium thing is the worst. Is the third party candidate that's going to come in and fix everything. I mean, I voted for Trump. I went to stop the steal. I thought the election was stolen, and none of it matters because Trump didn't declassify the JFK stuff that he was legally bound to declassify. He made Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo was the head of the CIA, and then he made him the head of the State Department. It's like, if you understand that the State Department, the Pentagon, and the CIA are all different divisions of the Federal Reserve Bank, then you realize what a bad idea that is. Likewise, John Bolton or Steve Mnuchin or any of the vaccines, Project Light, Warp Speed, all that stuff. It's like, I had cognitive dissonance. There's a big battle. David Knight, who used to be on InfoWars, he's probably justifiably upset that Alex Jones didn't recognize quicker that when Trump started Operation Warp Speed that he wasn't the guy. And they have, David is vociferous about talking about it. But I'm not sure that Alex Jones didn't have the same cognitive dissonance that I had, which was, well, maybe there's some 4D chess thing. Maybe there's something that I don't know about because he's the president and he's got all security clearance and whatever. I think most of us probably all have the same cognitive dissonance. Okay, but we've had a year to think about it. He's still bragging about the vaccines. The Trump shots. It's clear at this point that he put in Bolton, he put in Pompeo, he put in Mnuchin. He didn't declassify anything. Julian Assange is still in jail. Edward Snowden is still sitting in Moscow. None of that stuff changed, and I'm sorry it didn't change. And maybe that was the best we could do. Maybe it was. But if that's the best we can do in a rigged system, then maybe we shouldn't play the rigged system anymore. What happened to Scott? I don't know. I don't know what happened to Scott today because, and I'll tell people on this channel, and because we've got 25 people watching right now. I talked to you earlier about double binds, and people who are posting who are spamming double binds, you're either this or you're that. If they do it too many times, I mute them. So I've actually been out. Yeah, he renewed the Patriot Act. Thank you very much, Chris. Scott spews double binds. Mike Cernovich spews double binds. I like both of them. I think generally I agree with their opinions most of the time, but I find their double binds annoying, and so I choose to not pay any attention to them. I mean, if you do that, if you're using neurolinguistic programming as a instead of clever arguments, then I'm gonna just stop paying attention to you. So as far as Scott is concerned, Scott has drawn a line. I would say he's painted himself into a corner, and he's very good at arguing. So he's going to. I think he was just being a boomer. Well, I'm a boomer. With so many unknowns and seeking advice from everyone, maybe there's probably other reasons that I don't want to share on social media or on video, but the idea is that Scott has his opinion, and here's what's so great about it. here's what's great about disagreeing with Mike Cernovich or disagreeing with Scott Adams or disagreeing with anybody who's reasonable and logical and makes good arguments. And then sometimes they say things that you don't agree with. And that is that that's how the American public is supposed to work. The idea that we can find someone who represents all of our belief systems in a single individual is how you get Hitler. Okay, and that's the road we're on. That's why when Malone is talking about what's the name of the psychological mass psychological delusion or mass whatever that psychological
psychosis
term is. Yeah, whenever you yeah, I mean it's juiced Merleau, it's rape of the mind kind of stuff. It's like when you have this walloping window blind of political currents and people don't, and you get enough people confused and not knowing where they're going on, they're going to latch onto a leader and they're going to follow him wherever he goes. They're going to follow him right off the cliff like they did with Hitler. And, Trump was always being accused of Hitler. But what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a cult of personality. It's like instead of dealing with issues, you're dealing with teams. Instead of dealing with should people get mandated to be vaccinated or should they not be mandated to be vaccinated, it's like you're on Team Scott or you're on Team Malone. Stop being on teams. Look at what Malone is saying. Look at what Scott is saying, and then make up your mind for yourself. You don't have to be on Scott's team. You don't have to be on Malone's team. You just have to figure out whatever it is that they're talking about for yourself. And that's what Mills talks about as far as the American public is concerned. I'm in this rectangle, okay? I'm urging you, don't agree with everything that I say. Push back. Give me logical. Chris Fusco and I worked together for years. He's asking. He painted his ego into a corner. Yeah, Chris and I. Chris will tell you. We spend half of our time. I've known Chris for how long have I known you, Chris? 20 years, 25 years. Chris and I have spent at least half of our time disagreeing with each other, and we're great friends. I love him like my brother, and we. Largely agree on things, but a lot of times our perspective or the way that we come to the conclusions that we come to are from completely different directions, and that's great. That's the way that we should all do it. But stop falling in love with, whoever your favorite person is on Twitter. Just stop being in love with them. Be in love with somebody that you can go put your arms around. Everybody else just tolerate. That's my advice.
That's true.
Okay, here's a good. I wonder if Trump's social site will allow criticism of him. I don't want to find out. That's a great point, Rick. Like, I saw when I was watching Amanda Milius on Tim Pool the other night. And she was talking about Devin Nunes leaving the Congress and then going, she couldn't say it. It's like she couldn't say it. It's like he's left the place where she thought he could be effective and moved to the place where he's going to be working directly running Donald Trump's media company. It's like, yeah, well, Devin Nunes, again, that's so scary that Donald Trump is starting his own media company. It's a smart move if he never runs again. Okay. It's a smart move if he never runs again. But are they going to criticize Trump? Are they going to criticize the vaccines? Is Trump's media network going to go? Is the reason that Trump is saying what he's saying is because he's already had meetings with Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson about running ads on his network? Is that why he's saying that he got boosted? Did he really get boosted? Is he just saying it? Like He's got almost zero credibility with me right now. And the main reason is because I went to January 6th. I was sitting in the VIP area at his speech, and he didn't say anything. He said, come to Washington. It's going to be a wild time. But then he didn't make any kind of announcement. He didn't give anybody, the 250,000 people who went there, he didn't give them anything.
He gave an old speech. He repackaged an old speech.
Yeah, there was nothing new. And so don't let the door hit you on the way out. Thanks. You tried. You did all you could do. I'm not sure that I'm interested in him being president again. Yeah.
Well, I want to know if whatever his site is, I don't even know what it is, if it exists yet. But if everybody just like goes and signs up and then their first, it's not Twitter, but their first tweet or whatever it would be was F Trump.
That was whose tweet?
No. If we get on, we'll find out. If we get on his site, his social site, and everybody, like, their first tweet or whatever you put out there was F Trump.
Right. I mean, look, if Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer are the sponsors for the media that he produces on his site, it's like that thing is it's gonna be Friendster.
Friendster. Oh yeah, that lasted for a week.
So, did Trump have Twitter when he was touting warp speed? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, he did. Weird off topic. Why did the MSM start streaming PewDiePie? I don't know. Maybe he stopped. Maybe he went back to streaming games and stopped being edgy. I don't remember. I haven't seen PewDiePie.
I miss that guy.
Is he still on? I don't know. I haven't seen PewDiePie in a long time.
Me either. Certainly all year. I haven't seen him.
Anyway, yep, Trump is done for me anyway. Yeah, it's like, but to me, the Republic is done. So, let's figure something else out. I'm not interested in vaccine passports or being told I can't go to the gym because somebody at the CDC said so. I don't believe in the CDC.
He's on in Europe. Liza says he's on in Europe, but I don't know what that means exactly.
So we can see so you can see Klaus and Trump in Europe, but you can't see Klaus and Trump in the United States. Isn't that ironic? Anyway, all right. Well, I think that we've beaten this subject up, and we probably blackpilled enough people tonight. I'm sorry if I've depressed any of you. I don't mean to. I do mean it. I am optimistic when I think about what my options are. I'm not optimistic when I think about what people who are playing the game are.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. If he can tweet, I'd prefer if he just tweeted and stopped trying to be president again.
Wait. I don't know what happened. I know what happened here.
Prefio pie?
Lisa.
Okay, so, Carie, I have to not forget to post a link to and instructions on how to watch the forum with Klaus Schwab. Oh, I'll leave you with this. It's really funny. So the director of the movie, The Forum, did all of these scenes with Klaus, and in some of the scenes he's speaking English, and in some of the scenes he's speaking German, and they put subtitles underneath him. It's fine. He comes off like a stereotypical Bond villain, Third Reich type when he's speaking German. And he's saying fairly kind of Fourth Reich kind of things. But there's a version of the movie that you can get. And again, when you pay for the movie, you can watch any of the versions of it. There's a version of the movie where instead of putting subtitles underneath Klaus, they hired Forrest Whitaker to translate so the volume on Klaus goes down, and then Forrest Whitaker's voice comes in and does this nice, friendly rendering of whatever it is that Klaus is saying so that Klaus does not sound like a Nazi. It's very funny. Our sound is off.
No, I was asking because the comment above says we need sound.
Well, if we don't have any sound, do you not have any sound?
I hear. There's 24 people here. I imagine they're hearing as well.
Yeah.
But.
All right. Ron says they are all skiing in Aspen. Yes, nuke Aspen. World's problems go away. Actually, it's Jackson Hole. The Jackson Hole economic meeting, according to Catherine Austin Fitts, is where things really get decided. Again, going up to the top of the chart to the bankers. Here, I'll just. So the bankers all meet in Jackson Hole once a year, and that's where we're going to collapse the economy in 2021 or 2022 comes in. Anyway, all right. With that, we'll leave you with some little skiers, and I'll say goodnight. Remember to like and subscribe. We're over 1,000 subscribers now, which means that we can monetize this channel at some point. I think I applied. I don't know that it's all gone through yet. So like and subscribe. Tell your friends, and yeah. Now, just for the YouTube censors that are out there, I do not believe that anybody on this live stream or chat is in possession of a nuclear weapon. So nuke Geneva.
But don't check my pockets.
Yeah, nuke Geneva, and it's not Geneva. It's Davos, I think, Davos or Bern. Anyway, nobody on this live stream has a nuclear weapon, so we're not
that we know of.
We're not encouraging violence. But if someone was to, if Vladimir Putin or somebody was to actually, wipe out the G something, who knows what might happen. Bitcoin might actually survive. We'll see. Anyway.
Maybe.
Mark guarantees nobody has a nuclear weapon because Mark does not believe in nuclear weapons. And half of me believes Mark. I'm like on the fence. I'm willing to believe that yes. And one day, maybe we should have Mark on the show one day, and he can explain to us why nuclear weapons don't actually exist.
I want to hear it.
Would you like to do that, Mark? Anyway, and Ron, thanks for broadcasting regularly. You can thank Carie. I didn't know where Tracy is on vacation, and I didn't know where Lauren was, and I didn't know what to do today. So Carie volunteered. So thank you, Carie, for signing up and showing up. And now you know how to use the StreamYard back end.
A little.
Which means that you can actually be a producer. It'd be great. All right. Good night, everybody. See you later.
Good night.